So last week we did lower mind anatomy, and I introduced you to the Blender app, which we are using for that 3D anatomy, because we used the Complete Anatomy app for the material body, which is a very nicely made, put together commercial app available online for the material body, and we've had to create our own for the energy anatomy, haven't we? So I introduce you to Blender and our models for energy anatomy. So I'm going to go back to that now because we're going to start the 2 lessons on energy body anatomy. Now we've done the lower mind anatomy, and I'll just go straight into it then. The energy body, before I start, what we're going to do is we're going to do a very quick summary of the energy body itself. We're going to I'm going to introduce the main systems of the energy body very quickly. And then this week, we're going to focus on 2 of the systems, the chakra system and the meridian system. And then next week, we're going to do the other systems. Right then, so the energy body. The energy body is very well known, of course. It's been known about for a long period of time, thousands of years. And it forms the basis of many systems of healing and medicine. Let me turn off these labels for a minute so that you can see a bit better. So if you Google the energy body, you'll get all sorts of stuff online because there's loads of information out there, some good, some not so good. But a lot of these systems in the energy body are very well known already. Hence why chakra is such a famous word and meridian is such a famous word, Kundalini system. So all these are known about already. But of course, as I was saying last week, of course, we want to build on that knowledge. We want to look at it in far more detail, and we want to bring it into an anatomical space, a biological space, which is why we're starting to draw these out and we're starting to link the energy body in with the material body, because it's all anatomy. It's all part of the human system, and it all works together in a seamless way. Now, in the past, quite often, these systems have been known about, but they've been kind of separated from the material body, and just sort of it exists in a sort of a spiritual space or a healing space, when really we really need to bring all this together, really. Now, yoga philosophy is probably the best system that has brought these things together, because yoga philosophy and pranayama yoga, for example, is an ancient form of energy work with the energy body and linking it to the breath. There's a very important reason why breath work is a way of controlling the energy flows around the energy body. And that's been used for, thousands of years. So we're going to investigate why that is in this lesson. Right then, so this is the energy body. Now you can see the material body inside, which I've linked the energy body into the material body so we can see exactly where things are actually happening. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the energy body. And I've just left the material body in there for the moment so you can get a bit of a reference. And then I'll take the material body off, and then we'll go through these systems very quickly, one by one, before we'll get onto the main bulk of this lesson, which is the chakra system and the meridian system. So let me take the material body off and let's have a quick look inside. So as soon as I take off the material body, you can then see inside, you can see the lower mind in there as well, the lower mind framework, which we went through last week. So if I take the lower mind framework off, so we can just have the energy body. And there we go. Those are the systems of the energy body that we're going to be studying over the next 2 lessons. So first of all, if I go down to the energy body here, let's have a look at them in isolation quickly so you can make stuff out. So let's isolate the chakra system first. There we go, and that's the chakra system. And I've included only the major chakras in the Kundalini system, and also the hand chakras and the feet chakras. So that's the chakra system. We'll go over that in a minute. Meridian system. System of vessels carrying energy around the energy body and delivering it also to the material body. I'm going to go over that in detail in a bit. And just so that you can see the free flow system. Now the free flow system is these large system of vessels, which you can see a large one going down up and down the spine with storage areas there. Solar plexus storage, heart storage and throat storage. And then large vessels going down the arms and also down the legs. Also, the chakra cords are part of the free flow system. The chakra cords, which you can see going off in all directions there, that is connecting to other people's chakras. So that's the free flow system. And the Kundalini system. There is the Kundalini system, which we'll be going through next lesson. Kundalini system includes all the 9 chakras of the Kundalini system that go up the spine. Okay, but that's enough about them. Let's go into the 2 systems we want to do in this particular lesson, which is the chakras and the meridian system. So let's put some labeling on as well. Now, just to give you a quick overview, I'm going to go through these individually, but just to give you a quick overview of the purpose or some of the main purposes of the chakra and meridian system. Now, as you know, because we've talked about it already, the Krebs cycle in every cell of the material body is a chemical reaction which produces ATP energy, which powers the material body. And we breathe oxygen in through our lungs, and we use that, well, we breathe air in through our lungs, and we use oxygen as part of the Krebs cycle. We also burn fuel, food, or glucose in the Krebs cycle, which is why we have to eat. Now, as part of our research, we're going to suggest that part of the Krebs cycle is unknown to science, and that is that it needs a constant supply of subtle energy. And this is why subtle energy has been called life force in the past, traditionally, because people have kind of known this intuitively. And, you know, the idea that the body needs a supply of subtle energy is a very well-known concept. We're taking it a step further into science and theorizing that the meridians actually deliver this subtle energy to every cell of the material body. Now, we've talked about that lots, haven't we? So, the chakras and meridian system form part of that function. So energy comes in through the chakra openings, let's say through the heart chakra opening, for an example. It goes into the chakra mechanism, which is in there, and then it gets delivered to the meridian system, which is the system of vessels, and the system of vessels deliver it to the body, everywhere around the body. And then it comes back to the chakra, and then it gets fired back out of the chakra opening again. So it's a constant circulation of energy. And it's a little bit like blood and the heart. The heart pumps blood around the body, and it's a constant circulation. It delivers nutrients and oxygen to the cells, and it comes back to the heart, and it keeps getting circulated around. Air comes in and out of the lungs, and in the same way that this energy comes in through the chakras and back out of the chakras. So it's very similar. I'm going to go through that in detail in a minute, don't worry. But I just wanted to give you an overview of how these 2 systems link together. So let's start now with the chakra system and go into detail. So I'll take the meridian system off for a minute and let's talk about chakras. Right then. So let's start with a definition of a chakra, because they all have one particular function, and that is an energy pump. Now, chakras, there are hundreds of chakras around the body, and they often have very different specialized roles. But they all do that energy pump function as well. So if we're going to define a chakra, let's use that as a definition, that they all pump energy. And then after that, loads of them do lots of other things as well. It's a bit like the pancreas that has a dual function, has an endocrine function and an exocrine function. So chakras. So hundreds of chakras around the body, and Some of them have an opening to the outside and some of them don't. Now, I've just drawn on some of the chakras here, and all of these have an opening to the outside. Some chakras don't have an opening to the outside. Some chakras are just like inline pumps in a vessel, and you might get a little chakra which is just spinning and creating more flow inside the energy body. But they are much simpler chakras, and we don't need to worry about them. But that's why quite often you'll hear that there's 200 and something chakras in the energy body. That's a well-known thing. But the really interesting ones I've put on this diagram. And the interesting ones are what we call the major chakras. So the major chakras sit along the spinal column. And let's start at the root chakra and go through each one by one. So the root chakra at the base of the spine. So the root chakra is an emotion chakra, as you guys know, because there's 5 emotion chakras. And the root chakra in energy psychology governs the characteristics to do with safety, security, and survival in the personality. So that's its emotion regulating function. It's also got another function. It's a grounding mechanism. Now, this is very well known as well. I mean, if you say root chakra to somebody, they might say, oh, safety, security, but they might also say, oh, that's the chakra that grounds us to the earth, keeps us grounded. It's very well known. And the reason is because it has a mechanism inside it which actually grounds golden energy. We're going to talk about exactly why that is. But first of all, if you look at the root chakra there and see these 2 vessels which come down, these golden brown vessels which come down both legs and then are attached to the feet chakras. The feet chakras is a chakra which comes out of the palm of the feet, and energy is grounded through those chakras. So the feet chakras themselves are a specialized type of chakra which has been specialized for grounding. Now, why do we need grounding? You might ask. Why does golden energy need grounding? Well, that's going to become clear as I start talking about the function of some of these other chakras, because golden energy is used as a carrier system all the way around the energy body. What do I mean by carrier system? Well, think of blood as an analogy here. Blood carries stuff around the body, doesn't it? Delivers nutrients and oxygen. And it's a mechanism for things to get around the body. Well, there's a carrier system in blood, and it's water. Water is the main constituent of blood. It's basically just a stream of water, and then loads of stuff go in that water, and then we call it blood. Well, this is fairly similar, because throughout all of our energy vessels, throughout all of our energy anatomy, there is a carrier system of golden energy. Golden energy is carrying other stuff around the body. So there's always a constant flow of golden energy through the energy body. And it has to get out somewhere, and it gets out through our feet. It constantly is grounding through the root chakra and through our feet. I'm going to talk about how it gets in a sec. So that's the root chakra. 2 functions plus the energy pump function. Right then, let's move up to the sacral chakra. So the sacral chakra is about reproduction and parental care. That's its emotion regulating function in energy psychology. Now, if we look at it, it's slightly different from the root chakra. It's got a front opening and a back opening. And those are 2 separate mechanisms for energy exchange. Now, by the way, the root chakra also does this. I didn't mention that there, but the root chakra also brings energy in and fires it back out again. But anyway, back to the sacral. So let's just trace some energy through the chakra. So energy comes in around the outside of the chakra opening, through that golden ring there that I've put. That's the outside of the opening. And it actually comes in a spiraling motion, in a clockwise motion. Now, you can actually feel that. Say if you take your heart chakra, for example, you can actually feel that. with your fingertips. When you start becoming sensitive to energy, you can feel the energy movements around your chakra. You can feel it where it starts sucking in a little bit, and you can also feel it where it's getting fired out in a jet. And it's getting fired out in a jet in the center there, where it's orange. That's energy coming out in an anti-clockwise motion, and then the energy is getting sucked in. The golden energy is getting sucked in around the edges. So golden energy is going in, orange energy is coming out. That's very important to make that distinction, because what happens is that golden energy gets sucked into the chakra, comes into the chakra mechanism, and then you've got these donut shapes or torus shapes. Now, energy is actually getting sucked in through the gap, through the outside gap there. And it's getting sucked in because of the spinning motion of the chakra. The torus is actually spinning inside out like that. Both of those toruses are doing that. That's creating that magnetic flow through the gap. And then inside the chakra, there is a mechanism that is filtering the frequency of energy. And it's filtering the orange frequency. That's why the chakras are different colors, because they handle a different frequency of energy. So golden energy comes in, and then orange frequency is filtered out and then sent through these little pipes, these little orange pipes. Now, this is the reason why if you Google chakras, quite often you will get something like chakras look like a spinning wheel. So a wheel has been used to describe chakras in the past. And the reason is because of these spokes. They actually look like wheels. And then the chakra is creating a funny little effect as it spins. Now, orange energy then goes into this brown vessel here, or golden brown vessel. That's called the chakra manifold. And the chakra manifold connects all the chakras together. So red energy is going in there, orange energy is going in there, and so on. Okay, so let's move up to the solar plexus chakra. So in energy psychology, identification with beliefs. So this is all stuff you've done before, obviously, so I don't have to go on about it too much in energy psychology. But the solar plexus governs our characteristics to do with identification with beliefs. And that's the ego, that's the identity, egoic identity. And its energy pump function is the same. Energy comes in around, golden energy comes in, and then yellow frequency is filtered out and sent into the chakra manifold. And by the way, the reason this happens is because in the Krebs cycle, the way the subtle energy is needed, it needs to be separated out into all these frequencies. That's part of the reaction. So moving on to the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is about attachment to loving relationships in its emotion regulating function. And the energy pump function is the same. Golden energy comes in, green energy is filtered out and sent into the chakra manifold. This chakra manifold is going up the spine and linking all the chakras together. And I've made a start on actually linking that into the actual spine and the material body. So if I put on the material body there, you'll see that it is following the shape of the spine as well. And we can actually, I've only made a start on this. We will soon actually go further and link it in minute detail. But, this is going to be an ongoing process. Like, for example, last week, you had that intuition about the lower mind karma storage being overlaid on the thymus gland, which was a great intuition. So very gradually we will develop these diagrams as we learn more and more. So that's the heart chakra. Throat chakra, of course, communication of self-expression. And same with the energy function. Golden energy comes in, blue energy is filtered out through the chakra mechanism and then delivered to the chakra manifold. So before I carry on, I will carry on and tell you where that energy is going, that separated energy. But before I do that, let me just talk about some of the other chakras. And let's carry on up and talk about the brow chakra, because it's a very important chakra. It's not an emotion regulator, but it's a very famous chakra. Sometimes it's called the third eye chakra. So that comes out right in between the eyes, why it's called a brow chakra. Now, if we take off the material body and we put the lower mind back on, you can see inside there. The brow chakra is actually right there. That's the location of the pituitary gland in the brain. So the brow chakra is all about perception into the astral dimensions, and also communication, but in a telepathic manner. So telepathy and perception, that's what the brow chakra is all about. Hello, someone's got a... Yeah, so when you're doing golden energy yogic breathing, now this doesn't apply to you, by the way, because you do transform as you go through self-realization. But so I'm talking generally speaking with the human body. When somebody is doing golden energy yogic breathing, you are breathing in, your diaphragm is moving, and there is a mechanism on the diaphragm which is connected to all of the chakras. And as you breathe in, all the chakras go and spin really quickly and bring in more golden energy, basically. So when you're doing that golden energy yogic breathing, it really is coming in from everywhere, pretty much. Now, I should clarify what I said about the process of self-realization there, because as you go through self-realization, you go through a transformation, and actually golden energy starts coming in from the ninth chakra up here, starts coming down into your system from up here. You go through a transition. As you're going through self-realization, you go through a transition where you're bringing it in from through the chakras, but also it's starting to come into the ninth chakra. This is when sometimes people get that overloaded feeling and get too much energy and feel all unstable and have to go and do grounding exercises. The energy body is growing at the same time to accommodate it. But then eventually, as you go through the transformation, eventually you will stop bringing in golden energy through the chakras, and it will all come from the ninth chakra eventually. That's when all the chakras start to turn translucent. They lose their color. Right then. So crown chakra is next. Talked about the brow chakra there. Crown chakra, also an energy pump. But the crown chakra is like a gate. Some people call it a gateway chakra. A gateway to the higher chakras. Now, the higher chakras, we are... generally speaking, is a lot of people consider the brow chakra, crown chakra, and the two chakras up there to be the higher chakras. But really, the crown chakra is a link to the two chakras above, because the two chakras above are the link to the source of the universe. That's why these chakras exist. They're part of the Kundalini system. And when the Kundalini system grows, the ninth chakra starts to grow, and it allows the Kundalini awakening, and it allows self-realization, which is the purpose of life. It's the whole purpose of the universe. So things start coming down from the ninth chakra through the process of self-realization. So the crown chakra itself is an activator of Kundalini, and also it has access, like a gateway to the higher chakras. Now, the eighth chakra is basically just a tap. So the eighth chakra doesn't have a connection to the outside. It's just literally a tap in a vessel like that. And quite often through the process of self-realization, we tend to talk about our tap sometimes, because your higher mind can actually turn that tap on and off sometimes, and with various effects. Anyway, so the ninth chakra, as I've mentioned, that is the source. Things are materialized from nothing, or made physical from nothing in there. So it's a very interesting region of space, that little thing in there, the ninth chakra. And in our third lesson on energy healing, we are actually going to look inside the ninth chakra and understand what's happening in there. And we've drawn the anatomy of it, of what's actually going on in there. But that's later on. So last thing on this diagram in terms of chakras is the hand chakras. So as I mentioned earlier, there's feet chakras for grounding. There's also hand chakras that come out in your palm. They've evolved for the purpose of energy healing. That's why humans are such tactile animals. And you could say the same thing for all the great apes and monkeys and things like that. They've all got chakras in their hands because they're very social animals. And energy healing has evolved as part of our evolution to help each other heal, sharing healing energy. And it goes through some of the major chakras, but very often it goes through the hand chakras. And that's why so many of our energy healing systems on this planet use the hands for energy healing. Now, the hand chakras are linked to the free flow system. So let me just put that on there so you can see free flow system there. See? So the healing energy gets into the free flow system, and it's actually delivered to the hand chakra with that free flow system there. You can just see in coming down the arm there. Actually, let me just go over that golden energy thing again, because there's two systems going on within the chakra system in terms of energy manipulation. Golden energy comes in, doesn't it? Golden energy comes in around the outside of the chakra opening, and it comes into the chakra and it gets separated out in that chakra mechanism. Now, I've said that the orange frequency, in this case, the orange frequency gets separated out and then gets sent around the meridian system, right? Well, what happens to the rest of the energy? You've taken the orange frequency out, but there's all the other frequencies all mixed up together, and that's what golden energy is. Golden energy is just a mixture of all the frequencies. The rest of it goes into the chakra manifold as golden energy. And that golden energy is then used as a carrier system for all of the vessels in the energy body. So the golden energy, the remaining golden energy goes into the chakra manifold. It gets delivered everywhere, it circulates all the way around all our energy systems, and then it comes back to the chakra manifold. And then that is what gets fired out of the root chakra and grounded through our feet. So it's a constant circulation of golden energy, which serves as a carrier system for our vessels. Just like water serves as a carrier system for blood. So coming in through those chakras, you've got separated frequencies going into the meridian system for one particular purpose in the Krebs cycle. And you've got golden energy going around the body for another purpose. And then getting grounded through the feet. Okay. Last thing to mention here is chakra cords. Now, the chakra cords are part of the free flow system, but of course they're linked to the chakras. So let's just have a quick look at them. So the major chakras are connected to chakra cords, and this is how energy is transferred to other people. And it can go out the back of a chakra or out the front of a chakra. And then that connects into that one, the throat chakra, that connects to somebody else's throat chakra, front and back. And this is how emotional energy is transferred. And we talked about the whole emotional cycle last week, didn't we? In the lower mind anatomy. And how emotional energy is created and then circulated around and goes to a particular chakra. Well, as it gets to a chakra, it activates the emotional response, but it also overflows into the chakra cord and then is transferred to other people. So it's a natural mechanism of emotional communication between people. Okay, any questions on chakras? Yes, there are lots of methods of grounding, and there's loads of methods online as well if you do a bit of research. But a few methods, some examples is that some people say that having a cold shower helps you ground energy. Some people say that eating a large meal helps you ground energy, and quite often you can do visualizations as well. So I'm not particularly a big fan of the cold shower and large meal thing, but what you can actually do is certain exercises which help you ground energy through visualizations. And in fact, some yoga poses help you ground energy, like mountain pose, for example, when you're stood straight up and you have to align your spinal column vertically, and you visualize energy moving down through you and rooting you into the ground, basically. And you can actually visualize energy moving down through your legs. So it's kind of like an intention exercise of actually intending to ground energy. And you can do lots of different versions of that as well. You can do it in whatever position you want, but basically it's through visualization. Yeah. And I also think that there is a little bit of confusion out there in terms of the grounding community, because some people talk about grounding in terms of electrical grounding. And electrical grounding is actually different to what we're talking about here with subtle energy grounding. So I think that these two do get mixed up together, and you can get all sorts of electrical grounding stuff, and certainly that will be beneficial, I'm sure. But it's a different type of grounding, if you know what I mean. So yeah, just be aware of that as well. That it will definitely have an impact, because electrical activity in the body definitely impacts subtle energy, because it's electrical energy, like in the nervous system, creates magnetic fields around it, and that's what the inner aura is. It's a magnetic field, electromagnetic field coming off the electricity in the body. So it's definitely going to impact subtle energy, because magnetic fields impact other magnetic fields, but I don't think it's going to do the job of grounding golden energy, which is a separate type of grounding. So I think they just get a bit mixed up, don't they? Right then. So that's the chakra system. Let's now talk about the meridian system. And it's difficult to talk about the meridian system without involving the chakra system in a way. How are we doing for time, Veronica? Are we on track or are we late? All right. Okay, great. Miss anything out, did I? Don't think so. Oh, actually, yes. Well, I'm glad I did that. There are another couple of things to mention about the chakras if I've got the time. Yes. Okay. So if I got the time, I will carry on a little bit. As I mentioned, there are hundreds of chakras around the body. So here's a few examples of some more chakras. There is actually a chakra which I haven't drawn on this diagram. There's a chakra. Where have you gone? There is a chakra that comes out of the forehead, coming out directly there, and it's an energy exchange chakra. So energy is coming in and out, and there are chakras around the arms and legs. So there's a couple of chakras on the upper arm and a couple of chakras on the lower arm. Same with the legs. There's a couple of chakras on the upper leg and lower leg. There's also a reproductive chakra, which comes out of the sacral chakra. So the sacral chakra, as you know, is about reproduction and parental care. We'll just take off the free flow system a minute. So, okay, so that's a good question to mention that. So basically, with the emotion chakras, they get blocked up because the emotional energy is coming to that emotion regulating part of the chakra and sticking up the whole chakra mechanism. Then that emotional energy then overflows, basically. And this is how other blockages happen. And this is how blockages happen in the meridian system. This is how blockages happen elsewhere. And a secondary chakra, like an arm chakra, only gets blocked up because emotional energy is flowing past it and gets blocked up. So it's not an emotion regulating function, but it still gets blocked up just like everything else. And in the same way that you can feel sometimes energy blockages as pain in the meridian system, then a similar thing can happen in those particular chakras as well. But quite often if you have a blockage, you won't feel it. Only if it's really backed up and really solid that you're going to start feeling pain, because then it starts irritating the nervous system. So let me just go to a chakra and show you the mechanism of blockages. Yeah. Okay. So if we're talking about you won't have any blockages in anywhere, because as you go through self-realization, you stop creating blockages in any of the chakras, and then the rest of your energy body all of the remaining blockages dissolve away because the main chakras are no longer getting blocked up. Now that's the result of the Kundalini system. We'll talk about this next week, but as the Kundalini awakens, K1 energy goes up the spine, and as it goes through or past the emotion chakras, then those chakras can never get blocked up again. And then from then on, all the rest of the blockages in the energy body slowly disappear. So in your case, you won't have any blockages because you went through that, a good couple of 2 or 3 years ago. So by now, all of your blockages will have disappeared. So I'm afraid it's something else, probably another Kundalini symptom of some kind. So emotional energy. Let me just remind you how blockages. Now we talked about this in the bioenergy layer, but so emotional energy comes in from the lower mind anatomy because emotional energy is made by the lower mind guna. Went through this last week. And the emotional energy comes to a particular chakra that it's coded for. And this is the heart chakra. So emotional energy related to attachment to loving relationships is going to activate this chakra. And as an example, fear for a loved one, let's say, worrying for a loved one, that characteristic. So it's going to activate the heart chakra. Now, inside the chakra mechanism, there is a emotional regulator which gets activated. When there's too much of that emotional energy, it starts to overflow into these donut shapes, into the torus shapes, and it coats those donut shapes with emotional energy. It just coats it all over, and eventually the spinning mechanism gets slowed down. This is when you feel the chakra is sticky. And then eventually it will get caked on so much that it will stop moving completely, and eventually it will just seize up. And that's what a chakra blockage is. But it doesn't just stop there because it overflows. It overflows into these vessels. The emotional energy overflows into these vessels and goes into the chakra manifold, this golden brown one. And then that chakra manifold gets blocked up with emotional energy eventually. And then it gets transferred into the meridian system as well, and the free flow system, which I'll talk about next. But basically, those blockages, the emotional energy overflows and goes into all of these other systems as well, and can cause all sorts of havoc. Okay, well, so basically what you're probably feeling is general energy sensations around there when you're doing telepathy, because there is actually a telepathy organ which is quite large. And if I put on the lower mind, I'll put on the higher mind, because I think in your case we're talking about higher mind telepathy. Let me just put that on a minute and take off the energy body. See that? And that's the telepathy organ, and that actually fills the sinus spaces in the skull. And this is why you get this pressure all the way around there. Yeah. Yes, it's a bit lower. Anyways, that's the higher mind. Anyway, we'll get to the higher mind next week. So that's where the brow chakra is coming out of. It's right in between the eyes, really. So, well, literally the brow. That's the brow, isn't it? So, yeah, right there. Okay, so lastly on the chakras, I'll keep saying lastly and going back. Never mind. So we've talked about there's a forehead chakra going right up like that. There's also a reproductive chakra. Now, if you look very closely at the sacral, now the sacral is about reproduction and parental care in energy psychology. But the reason why it's about reproduction is that there is a derivative of the sacral which actually hangs off the sacral chakra. It's like a secondary chakra which is linked to the sacral. So you could say it's part, or you could say the sacral is actually a double chakra, I suppose you could say. Anyway, it's a reproductive chakra which comes out where the reproductive organs are around here. So in between there. And this is where sexual energy actually gets transferred as well, because that actually transfers from people to person as well. Another thing to mention about the chakras is intuition. Now, we're going to talk about intuition when we talk about the higher mind anatomy, but another function of the chakras, or the 7 major chakras anyway, the 7 chakras from the root up to the crown, another function is intuition pathways. So we've talked about this when we did the intuition lesson. But as the higher mind grows the ability to communicate with the lower mind to keep it on the life plan, the intuition pathways actually run through the major chakras. So I haven't drawn them on here. I've drawn them on the higher mind diagram, which we'll talk about next week. But they go through these 7 major chakras, the crown chakra there, and the brow chakra, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and root. And the intuition pathways, just to remind you, are knowing goes through the crown chakra, information goes through the brow chakra, focus goes through the throat chakra, love in the heart chakra, pleasure in the solar plexus chakra, enthusiasm in the sacral, and joy in the root chakra. There, I think we're done for chakras, unless anybody's got another question about chakras. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. But I'll tell you what, let's bring it up at the end here, and I'll go through each stage of surrender and explain it. It's no problem at all. And your question is perfectly normal to as you're going through the surrendering process, you ask yourself these questions. So yeah, 100%. And by the way, just before the only thing I will say right now is that you do surrender again and again and again. It's not a one-time thing. It carries on and on and on until there is no more to surrender, until there is nothing left to give away. And then you are your true self, when there's nothing left to give away, because everything is false, that you're giving away all the illusion. But I'll go through it at the end of this lesson if we have time. Okay, how are we doing? Shall I carry on, Veronica? Okay, so now we're going to talk about the meridian system. So we've got the meridian system drawn now on this diagram. I've left the chakra system in for the moment, just so you can see them together. And we're going to talk about how they are linked anyway. And I've left the material body in there so you can at least get a sense of where the meridians run. Now, one thing to mention here with these meridians, the meridians are a very well-known set of vessels. A massive part of Chinese medicine is based on meridians and energy vessels. If you've ever had acupuncture or acupressure, they use maps of these meridians, so you can Google this stuff, and the maps of the energy vessels are all online. Now, if you do that, be careful, because a lot of the different maps can be slightly different, and the reason is because, and I'm talking about the position of vessels here, and the reason is because different maps include different systems as well, and there's vessels all the way around our whole energy systems. There's vessels in the lower mind circulation system, there's vessels in the energy body, there's meridians. So this is just scratching the surface. I've drawn the major meridians on here, but there's all sorts of other vessels, and there's all sorts of circulation systems in the lower mind and higher mind. So if you see a map online, it may be a snapshot of lots of different things put together, basically. But the idea is very well known, of course. And most systems agree roughly on the major meridians, which is what I've drawn on this diagram. So what is the meridian system? Well, the meridian system is a system of one-way vessels which carries energy from the chakras to the material body. That's the main purpose. So it has to get those separated frequencies into a major vessel and then deliver it to the cells of the material body. And I've put the material body on here, and I want to mention here that it's only half done really, because what we want to do eventually is to trace these meridians into the material body and show where they deliver energy to. Now, some people have done this already, by the way, but I want to make sure that we do it ourselves. So these meridians actually go and deliver a particular part of the material body, and we will be able to trace the meridian when we finish this diagram. We'll trace the meridian into the material body and find where they go. For example, at the moment I've just put little stoppers, those little balls, just put little stoppers on the end showing that they actually go into the material body, and I've left it there for the moment. So if I take the material body off, you'll see that there's loads of those little stoppers. That's where the meridian goes into the material body. We will connect that up at some point. So it's a system of one-way vessels into the material body. Now, if I just put the material body back on a minute, I want to show you something interesting. See these meridians that go into the face? Well, I wonder if you can notice anything. Put that on a minute. I wonder if you can notice anything about the position of those, and also these there and the collarbones there. Has anybody heard, and I know some of you have heard of tapping therapy? Can't remember the name of it. I don't know much about tapping therapy, but that's right. Yeah, okay. So it involves, I think there's more to it than just tapping, but it involves tapping on certain points in the body. And there are also crossovers with massage therapy as well. There are certain massage points in the body. Now, one thing I noticed when we drew this was that afterwards, which was actually these meridians that go in the face are on the tapping points. So there's a tapping point here, 2 on the cheeks, 1 on the top lip. There's 2 big tapping points here on the collarbones. They're also massage points. So I think what's going on there is that it's blockages that tend to congregate around these areas because they're moving from the meridian into the material body, and there's a junction there which tends to get sticky with emotional energy blockages. So massaging them or tapping them tends to help free that blockage. Now, I'm not sure if that is a theory within the tapping therapy or not, to be honest with you. I don't know if they recognize that or not. But anyway, I always thought that was very interesting. Right then, so let's talk about the meridian system and how it works. So let me take off the material body. So let's go back to chakras quickly, because the chakras is where the energy gets in, which we've just talked about. So let's look at the throat chakra as an example. So energy is coming in around the outside of the chakra opening, goes in through the chakra mechanism. And don't forget, by the way, there's 2 chakra mechanisms there in one chakra, one on the front, one on the back. Don't forget that. When we're teaching people chakra breathing, that's why it's so important to do one on the front and one on the back. They're actually separate mechanisms. Anyway, so the separated frequency goes, or in this case, the blue energy goes into the chakra manifold here. And then that has got the separated frequencies from all the other chakras. And those separated frequencies go up to this little thing here, which is, I think, is a type of filter. Now, I don't know exactly how it works or what it does, to be honest with you, but I can just see it there. And it's where the chakra manifold joins the meridian system. So it's where the energy goes into the meridian system. And that is at the back of the head, right there, like that. So from there, it goes into the meridian system. So let's have a look at the vessels of the meridian system. So I'll just take off the chakra system now and the material body. Now, it's not massively important for us for the moment to be naming all these meridians, to be honest with you. When we look into it even more deeply, maybe in our next, when we extend the FASTRAC to a 3-year course instead of a 2-year course, we can actually trace all the meridians, and then we can name them separately depending on where they're going. But for the moment, it's just important to know that these meridians follow a bit of a pattern. And as you can see, it goes into this filter thing first, and then that is connected to the central meridian, which is this one that runs down the center line, all the way down there, and then round the torso, comes up here, all along the center, and then round again. So it's just one ring, basically, around the body. That's the central manifold meridian. And from there, it goes to all the other meridians. So here you can see some connections to a side meridian. Through this connection here, it gets to both of this one and this one. And to keep things simple, I've named that right meridian. And of course, the other one is left meridian. I don't seem to have put the labels on there, and maybe that's just because I couldn't be asked and that it was obvious enough, but for some reason I've only got the right ones labeled. And from there, it goes into the other meridians, like the right arm meridian, which is a meridian that comes down this right arm here. And it also goes down the legs as well. The right leg meridian is this one here, comes all the way down the legs. So if you separate it out into meridians, it becomes fairly simple, really. There's a central one, right and left one, and then right arm, right leg, etc. Now something, okay, no, I'll tell you what, I'll carry on now to the delivery, and I'll come back to blockages. So what happens to the energy once it's gone into a meridian and gets delivered? This is where I've put these little stoppers. Well, I haven't put it on the diagram, but I will describe it to you. So if I go back to the lower mind circulation system and turn that, because it is the lower mind circulation system which delivers subtle energy to the material body. This is the go-between. And we talked about the lower mind circulation system last week, didn't we? Where it's got that central ring vessel, that green one there. And then from there it goes into the lymph system overlay. So the lower mind circulation system is overlaid on top of the material body lymphatic system. That's why it looks the same, and that's why you can see these little lymph nodes and lymph vessels. This is an overlay to the lymphatic system. It's not the lymphatic system. It's in the lower mind I'm talking about here. But that is the delivery system. So that lower mind circulation system delivers subtle energy to every cell of the material body. The lymphatic system is connected to pretty much every cell of the material body because it drains lymph fluid. So basically, the meridians have to get their supply of subtle energy into the lower mind circulation system. So this is the bit I haven't actually drawn. But what happens is that from that stopper on the end of a meridian system there, it goes into smaller vessels and then smaller vessels, and then it joins at these lymph nodes. So do you remember last week I was talking about the lymph node, and in the lower mind, that's where it connects to the meridian system. So there will be a connection from these stopper points on the meridian system into these lymph node overlays. And from there, it can get delivered into every cell of the material body through the lower mind circulation system. And that delivers those separated frequencies to the Krebs cycle. Okay, let's talk about blockages. So there we've talked about, well, just as a roundup, we've talked about the purpose of the meridian system. It's a lot less complicated than the chakra system because it just has one function, really. But it can also get blocked up. How does it get blocked up? With emotional energy. And now we're going to talk about things like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, pain, which are common complaints, and they are growing complaints. And we talked about this in the bioenergy layer, if you remember, of the pyramid. So if I turn the lower mind off for a minute and turn the chakras back on, now chakras can get blocked up, can't they? The emotion chakras are the emotion regulators, and emotional energy comes in from the lower mind into the emotion regulating part in there inside, and it overflows into the chakra mechanism and gets all stuck and blocks that chakra. But it doesn't stop there. It overflows into these vessels, as I mentioned earlier, and that emotional energy blocks up the chakra manifold, but it also goes up the chakra manifold and into this filter here, which I haven't even named, to be honest, yet. But this is how it gets into the meridian system. So it's not supposed to be there. The meridian system is not part of our emotional cycle. It shouldn't be there. But as we know, things go wrong in our bodies, don't they? It's no different in our energy anatomy. So emotional energy blockages come through into the meridian system and overflows, gets in the meridians and then causes blockages in there. And sometimes you can just feel a blockage, and sometimes it moves around, and sometimes you can feel the blockage moving around. Sometimes you can feel it as pain. A common one is in this particular meridian here. And I don't know why it's a common one. Let me put the material body on. Okay, lovely. So a common one is on this face meridian here. Well, it's not, it's a side meridian, or leg meridian actually, but it goes past the face. And for some reason, I get a lot of people saying that they have a pain on one side of their face. And quite often if they do breath work, it then goes away. This seems to get blocked up quite a lot. And it's just a blockage that's just traveling down that particular meridian. Another area of concern is the lower back. As you can see, there is lots of meridian points into the material body in the lower back area. And I think very often lower back pain can be exacerbated by blockages in the lower back. Now you can remove blockages with energy healing. You can break them up. You can chase them around the body. You know, if you're using your hands, you can iron them out. You can chase them around until they dissolve and disappear. You can do it through yourself, through self-energy healing. And in fact, Kriya Yoga is a system of yoga which is designed to trace all the vessels in the energy body and remove blockages. And general breath work is also going to help clear them, because general breath work keeps the chakras clear and healthy. So let me trace some energy all the way through. Turn off the material body. So let's start bringing the two systems together that we've talked about. Trace the energy all the way through and out again. So energy first comes in, golden energy. Golden energy is everywhere, outside ourselves. All frequencies of magnetic field. That's what golden energy is. And we can bring it in. And in scientific words, you could call it magnetic flux, because that is the movement of a magnetic field. Golden energy comes in around the outside of the chakras, and in this case, the heart chakra. Golden energy comes in around in a circular motion. And by the way, when you are working on people's chakras, quite often it's useful to use the direction as well. Certainly if you're using it with your hand, if you're trying to put energy into somebody, then it goes in a clockwise motion into that chakra. And if you're trying to remove energy from somebody, for example, if you're trying to remove negative emotional energy in their energy body, then you can see it coming the opposite direction. It's like screwing in a screw, by the way, or unscrewing a screw. It's the same direction. So golden energy comes in around the edges of the chakra. It comes into the heart chakra here. Green energy is separated out by the filter mechanism inside the chakra. And the rest of the golden energy is also sent on as well. Green energy comes through these set of vessels into the chakra manifold. Golden energy also comes into the chakra manifold. I haven't drawn those vessels there. Golden energy is then used as a carrier system to go around the whole energy body and all the vessels, and then is grounded out of the root chakra and the feet. So golden energy is constantly fed around the body and grounded. But separated energy, in this case green, goes into the chakra manifold, and it's sent up into this filter, and then it crosses over into the meridian system. By the way, just as an aside, it also goes into the free flow system, but we're going to talk about that next week, so don't worry about that. But we're talking about the meridian system now. So that separated frequencies goes into the meridian system. So if you look at a cross section of a meridian, you're going to see lots of little smaller vessels inside with different colors. Those are the separated frequencies. So that gets delivered around the meridian system. So it can get around the whole body by jumping across, from the central meridian into the side meridians, into the arms and legs meridian. When it gets to a particular place in the body, it comes out of the meridian system and into the lower mind circulation system, and it joins at the location of the lymph nodes. And then from then on, it goes into the lower mind circulation system and gets delivered into the material body cells. Now then it does its job in the Krebs cycle, and then it comes back because it doesn't get used in that reaction. It's just a facilitator. So it comes back through a different set of vessels, which I haven't drawn, and the separated frequencies come back to the individual chakras, and we started with the heart chakra, so I'm going to go back here. So after the Krebs cycle, after every cell of the body gets delivered through a different set of vessels back to the heart chakra, the green energy comes back to the heart chakra, and then that gets fired out of the heart chakra opening there. And that is the jet of energy that you can feel coming out of the heart chakra. So it's a constant flow. We're sucking it in, circulating around, firing it back out again. And there's so many similarities, isn't there, to the material body. This, you could say, is part of the respiration cycle and the circulation system. The heart, the lungs, the circulation system, the chakras and the meridians, they're all part of the same function to create life and energy in the material body. So as we breathe in, air's coming into our lungs and it's going into our bloodstream. At the same time, energy is coming in through our chakras and separated frequencies are going through the meridians. That oxygen is going through the blood and getting circulated to every cell of the body, which is used in the Krebs cycle. Those separated frequencies are getting circulated through the meridians and through the circulation systems and goes to every cell of the body for the Krebs cycle. And then they both come back in different their respective systems. So it's part of the same function. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to bring it in together. The material body and the energy body, it's all part of the human system and it functions together. Okay. I think that's about it in terms of talking about the anatomy. There is one particular question which a lot of people ask, which I'm going to ask it and answer it. And that is, the question is, why do we tend to get problems in the material body around the areas of blocked chakras? This is a common question because it's very well known, extremely well known, that if you've got a blocked chakra, you tend to get material body problems in that area. If somebody has a long-standing heart chakra blockage, then it's likely over, and I'm talking decades here really, of seized chakras, it's very likely people will get heart problems. If somebody has a blockage in the throat chakra over a long period of time, it's very common that they get thyroid problems, and so on. So the question is why? And the answer is that it's not quite as it seems, because you might think that it might be to do with the meridian system, because the meridian system is delivering subtle energy to the Krebs cycle, right? So if you reduce that flow of subtle energy through the meridian system, you're going to get problems in the material body, aren't you? And this is what chronic fatigue is all about. And very slowly, cells are going to die if they don't get enough energy. So you could think that energy coming in through the chakras and then getting delivered into the material body by the meridians is what causes problems in the material body. But it wouldn't make sense, because meridians deliver subtle energy to all parts of the body. It's not close to the chakras, if you see what I mean. So the reason why areas close to the chakras actually start to have problems is because of an overflow into the free flow system, which we're going to talk about next week. But the free flow system, if I put that on there is a mechanism by which energy goes into the free flow system, emotional energy, because that's what we transfer to other people. And it's that which actually overflows with negative emotional energy and overflows into the surrounding areas. We'll talk about that more next week. because we'll talk about the free flow system next week. But the free flow system is also linked into the lower mind circulation system. That's why. And it overflows locally around the chakras. So wherever we're going to get an emotion chakra and a blockage in that emotion chakra, we are going to get problems in the material body over long periods of time. And we need to start documenting these problems in Network Healers so that we can always know what the common problems are around each chakra. Okay, we'll talk more about that next week when we talk about the free flow system. Okay, any questions then? Yes, that's a very good assumption, because and that already exists in 2 ways. First of all, yoga. Now, doing yoga, hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is poses and positions and stretching. Now, a part of what yoga does is actually freeze blockages, and it does it through movement. So you're absolutely right. Stretching, there's certain stretches that are actually designed to open certain chakras. And the reason is because they are stretching the anatomy and manipulating it around, and that actually helps break up blockages. So you're absolutely right. And the second one is exercise, physical exercise. I mean, we all obviously know that physical exercise is fantastic for the material body. The material body needs it as part of staying healthy. But it also is fantastic for the energy body as well, because when you're exercising the material body, you're also exercising the energy body, because it's part of the whole system, but you're also moving as well. So exercise makes you move, and moving manipulates the energy body and helps to break up blockages. And it's similar in the material body. The more movement, the better. For example, the lymphatic system needs movement to actually circulate. And if there's hardly any movement in the material body, things start to slow down and block up with bits and pieces, and it's the same principle, really. Yeah, I agree. And many other systems of healing include movement, like Qigong or Qigong, and things like that. It's very important, isn't it? Yeah. So you're probably right. It's doing biological stuff, but it's being called spiritual. But it's the same. It's the same thing. Well, I think that the energy body doesn't shut down, that's for sure, because the energy body carries on its function, because the energy body is bringing in, the energy body is part of the soul, and it's bringing in energy and circulating it around the energy body, and also the higher mind. The higher mind also needs a constant supply of subtle energy. It also has a circulation system. So all that carries on as normal. What changes when the soul leaves the body is that the lower mind circulation system is what is plugged into the material body. So all of those lower mind circulation system plugins, which overlays the lymphatic system, they all unplug out of every cell. And that's what causes the material body cells to die, because they're no longer receiving subtle energy. So it's the detachment of the lower mind from the material body that is doing most of the work there. Also, there's the chakras as well, the chakra gluing points. So the chakra gluing points glue all of the energy body frameworks into the material body. If those chakras become detached from the material body, then also it's going to have a similar effect, basically. Yeah, I would say they didn't. I would say they didn't unplug at all, and the experiences of being out of your body is a normal experience for astral travel. So when somebody feels like they leave their body and they're seeing their body from above, well, that's what happens in astral travel anyway. That's not actually leaving the body. It's uploading and downloading information from the collective mind. It's like remote viewing in a way. You can actually see yourself from another position in the collective mind, and that's what the astral body is. But all that is going on in your filter, in your awareness filter. So you don't actually leave your body when that happens. So I think that people who have near-death experiences and then come back, their soul hasn't actually left the material body. Otherwise, it would. I think it's permanent. I don't think you can reattach, because those connections have to grow in an embryo. The anatomy the physiology works that the soul comes into the embryo in gestation, and it grows together. So upon death, the connections are severed, and then there's been no way of coming back at that point. Okay, yeah, sure. Right, so surrender. Surrender can be applied to all of the journey of spiritual evolution, to be honest. It just goes through lots of different stages. And really, it's part of healing. It's part of the journey of healing, surrender, because if you think about it, the source of the universe is unity, and it loses its self-awareness through creating the physical universe of form because of the separation. It loses itself in that separation. And it falls into an illusion, Maya, the veil of illusion of the physical universe of form. And the journey of life is the journey back towards self-realization. It's the journey home for the universe. And part of that journey of life is the evolution of separate beings. Lots of little beings running around the universe thinking that they're separate from everything else. That's the illusion. And self-realization is the realization that that's not the case. The false self disappears and you realize unity, the unity of your true self, which is the same thing as saying the universe realizes its true self through you. But the you here kind of disappears. The false self disappears, it shatters into pieces, the ego vanishes, and suddenly you are pure awareness, the universe itself. So that's a long journey, of course. And surrender is the idea, really, of the false self surrendering its identity and becoming the true identity of the true self, the universe, the source. So surrender is surrendering identity, basically. Now, there is a long journey of surrender, and it starts way, way, way back in the spiritual evolution journey. As soon as that higher mind starts to go on a journey of healing, incarnation after incarnation. And really, the journey of surrender starts with the ego. The ego has to, first of all, self-discipline itself, and it has to try and reduce itself, doesn't it? And that's what the journey of self-healing is all about, really. It's about reducing the effects of the ego, because the ego really is the source of all the problems, the human condition. So the journey of spiritual evolution is trying to dampen down the ego all the way through until it's producing hardly any karma, reducing the karma levels that the ego is producing. So really that's a kind of surrender. The ego has to dampen itself down. It's a kind of like it's self-discipline, though. It's the ego disciplining itself. That's a type of surrender. Now, as you go through Kundalini awakening, as a soul has gone through a long journey of spiritual evolution, it goes through Kundalini awakening, then surrender takes on a new form, really. Because through the Kundalini awakening process, which is the Kundalini phase of self-realization, these energies are moving around the energy body. We talked about that a lot, haven't we? K1 goes up through the emotion chakras. K1, when it gets to the solar plexus chakra, the identity starts to shatter. It starts to disappear. Now, new level of surrender is then needed, because you have to then surrender the ego. The ego has to surrender itself and allow itself to die, in a way. That's what ego death is. So that's another level of surrender, really. But then the Kundalini phase finishes, and you go into the phase of self-realization. And that's another level of surrender. Now, this is really where we're getting to your question, to be honest with you, because this is where you're at. So this next level of surrender, which is ongoing through the phase of self-realization, although really actually it only lasts for the 7-year negative cycle. because that's how long it takes the identity to finally disappear. Because the ego in the Kundalini phase, there's still a structure of ego creating the ego. After the Kundalini phase, that structure is disintegrated, but there is still identity left in the lower mind. The lower mind still has thoughts and conditioning patterns. And as you go through that process, the conditioning patterns are getting smoothed out or ironed out, and the lower mind is getting less and less and less and less. And you're letting stuff go constantly, left, right, and center. You're letting go of all your past conditioning patterns. And with that, the identity gets rubbed away. Now, eventually, you get to a certain point where you can't even call it an identity anymore. And we move to another word. We call it a sense of individuality. You move into you just have a slight sense of individuality. And then you go even further, and even that disappears completely. And you have no sense of individuality whatsoever. That happens at the end of the 7-year negative cycle. There's no more identity or individuality at all in that person. Now that's what happens, let's say physiologically. Now what happens in your experience? How does it feel? Which I think really is what you're asking there, and how to navigate through it. Now, what it feels like, first of all, is that there's no more free will, because you realize that free will was an illusion. And as you go past the Kundalini phase, the higher mind takes control completely. And you notice this in various ways, some people more than others, but the lower mind suddenly loses all of its control over anything. And it has to surrender that control. It has to surrender planning and scheduling. It has to surrender strategizing. It has to surrender all of that analytical thinking that it was so used to doing. Now, for me, using an example in my process, for me, that was so difficult, because in my career and in my life, I was always very organized and very strategic and very controlling over every aspect of my life. So for me, it was so difficult to let go of, and it hurt. And I got battered until it disappeared, basically. But yeah, all of that strategizing out the window. You don't need it anymore. That's the lower mind way of working. The new way of working is through the Akashic stream, joining the infinite plan of the source, jumping in the river and closing your eyes and trusting where it takes you, basically. So that is a level of surrender that you have to go through. You have to let it all go. And then that carries on. You have to let more stuff go. You have to let go of your very existence. Although that's a bit of a trick way of saying it, because of course not your true existence. The lower mind has to let go of its existence. But what it feels like is that you're letting go of yourself. You have to give up your identity. You have to give up yourself. You have to almost, in here, you have to almost lay down, put your arms back and say, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm here for whatever the universe wants to use me. I don't have any say over anything anymore. I'm yours. You have to say that to the source, almost, in a way, until there is no more identity or sense of individuality left whatsoever. And that's a long journey of flattening out the lower mind and the lower mind identity and sense of individuality. So that's what surrender really means. And I've stopped for some reason. Has somebody got a question? Yeah, that's a very good point to mention, because the lower mind, when you say that to the lower mind will go, oh, but what, do I just completely disappear? Is there nothing left? Well, actually, what happens is that the lower mind gets copied. And do you remember we were talking a week or two ago about the process in between incarnations, where the lower mind gets copied into a lower mind simulation, sim, and gets held in the higher mind. Remember that in between incarnations? Well, actually, that's kind of what happens in self-realization as well. That the lower mind gets copied and turns into a lower mind simulation. It goes through lots of phases, actually, lots of different processes, and in the end, it turns into a personality projection. Now, a personality projection, there's no identity to it. It comes from your akashic stream and out through the throat chakra, and it's just what comes out of your mouth, basically. And it's somewhat based on the old personality, but also very different. But it still has personality traits of the old personality. So there is a certain part of your personality which stays and just comes out of you. And it's not a personality because there's no thoughts in the lower mind to do with it. It comes out and you just talk it, basically. I also want to go back to one of your points. I think you said about surrender. I think you said, to me, it feels like just letting everything pass, letting everything. So if the first thing that needs to be said there is that don't forget that when you go through the process, you can't do anything wrong. That's the first thing. So all of this analysis in the mind is the lower mind analyzing, and you can't actually do anything wrong because the higher mind has taken over control. So that's the first thing to really try and understand, and that's really difficult for the lower mind because it's like doesn't make sense. But whatever you do is right, and quite often, sometimes with intuition, you don't even know what the right decision is until you've made it, and then you look back and you go, well, I made it, so that's the right decision. But then very gradually you learn to let go of the analysis bit, and you just do instead of think. And that's completely opposite to before Kundalini, because before Kundalini it's all about analysis, being careful, self-discipline, analyzing things properly, making the right decisions, because that's how the lower mind works. But then after Kundalini, it's completely the opposite. So you have to let go completely and allow your higher mind to make the decisions. And sometimes you just have to trust blindly. And that's also part of surrender, is trusting blindly. Now, your higher mind may well make you do things to heal yourself. It might do. It might not. So it just depends. I've had various experiences where sometimes I've been made to do some self-healing on the material body to fix something, and then other times I've had symptoms where I've had to just completely ignore them. So it really just depends on your process and what happens in your process, and you will only know. Sometimes you'll only know as you're doing it. But it's all about trusting. Well, quite often self-healing doesn't work after Kundalini in the phase of self-realization. Very often, in fact, and in most, I think more often than not, it doesn't work. And the reason is because it's trying to trigger you. Your high mind is trying to trigger your lower mind. And that's part of the process, being triggered, because that's the purging aspect of getting rid of all those conditioning patterns. And the lower mind can't understand it. The lower mind says, well, this used to work before. This self-healing used to work before, and now nothing's happening. And that's the triggering aspect of the process. So that's very, very normal. So the lower mind has to surrender at some point. But that's not to say that you shouldn't try. Your higher mind will make you do whatever is necessary. But if you're trying to do self-healing, then there is a purpose to it. If you decide to just chuck it all away and not even think about it, then there's a purpose to that as well, basically. Yeah, exactly. And one good measure here is that if you're getting triggered by something, then that's a massive purpose on its own. Yes, it's a purging. You could call it a release. Yeah, because every time those thought patterns get activated, it's getting less and less and less. That's the percolation phase of self-realization. And the emotions will go up and down for quite some time as well. It's perfectly normal for you to go through ups and downs with the emotions, 100%. Yeah, well, the process is full on, to be honest, and it's crazy at times as well. And you think, what? This is an insane process. But the good thing is, we're going through it together, and there's other people going through it, and it is something that you can share and learn about as well. But I guess I should also say here that you can't do anything about any of this. It's important to be aware of what's going on, but you can't actually change anything. You have to go with it. No worries. See you guys next week. No assignment, remember, for this week, and see you guys next week for the second lesson of energy anatomy.